So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our new webinar episode. I hope you all are doing well. So one more time, we have Mr. Pankaj sir for today's webinar. I'm Ravinder Kandari, your host for today's session. For the new audience, this is our fourth episode of the webinar series with Pankaj sir. You can check out our past webinars from the playlist. So today we have chosen a topic that how government policies affect startup journey. So Pankaj sir, how are you doing today?
Very much fun. Thank you for me inviting again for the session and enlightening with the new topic that is rightly chosen by government policy. Again, last day also I complimented your common sense. Today is also a common sense is much better because you are now on the dot point of startup policy that I will elaborate in the future timing. Now, all of you are aware that I hope that who are watching me knew that in India, there is no such act like we study Income Tax Act, GST Act, or Profession Tax Act, or a Factory Act, but there is no such kind of GST Act in India, right? Like there is no GST Act, there is no circular notification rule. There is only a one set of defined DPIT statement says that any entity that is private limited partnership or registered partnership who has not completed 10 years and not turnover has exceeded 100 crores. That is the only definition in India still available for startup. There is no other kind of specific definition how, if the problem arises, how it will be solved, what are the rising areas, what are the sections, what are the definitions. There is no such kind of ecosystem itself designed for startup mechanism. So the government on the 1st August 2023, that is around a week back, has announced a deep tech startup policy. That is a draft policy has been designed by Secretary of the Department, where we have to give comments in around 21 days. And then a deep tech policy on the startup ecosystem will be designed in India for the first time. So that deep tech policy is around 56 pages. Policies are given there in 9 points. They have defined that policy. That is how it will be done, what it will be done, and that is a major policy will be impacting our startup ecosystem. That is, I'll read before the users. This is a original policy that is designed by the government, and it says about the draft National Deep Tech Startup Policy NDTSP 2023. So it majorly covers into 9 sections. 9 parts are there where they have got the audience. Audience means in the terms of the population of the country who is desired to give the comments on the draft policy of that National Deep Tech Policy. That is nurturing research, development, innovation. Means this says about. Second point is strengthening intellectual property regime. What will be the intellectual property regime? Facilitating access to funding, enabling infrastructure access and resource sharing, creating conductive regulation standards and certification, attracting human resource and initiate capacity building, promoting procurement and adaptation, enhancing policy and program interlink, sustenance of deep tech startup. So these are the 9 points which government is stressing upon that we should be framing. A first time a deep tech policy is being announced. So this is what happens when somebody is planning for some technological startup and he has been building on years to years, he will be working on it. But suddenly the government policy comes and you have to change your path. So this is the matter of uncertainty which a startup has to keep in mind while framing this policy. So this deep tech policy is a very important milestone and the first milestone in the history of the Indian startup ecosystem after 1st January 2016, where policy is coming up and the draft policy, roughly the draft policy will be coming around 15 September, it will be finalized, and in coming the winter session of the parliament. That is when the winter session of the parliament will be sitting around November and December. Now the monsoon session is going on. So my dear friends, before taking any of the decision in the government policies, you should understand the parliament sittings also, when it is working and probably when the policy will be getting approvals. So that's why you can understand the time frames. right? Around November, December, the policy will be placed before the honorable parliament of both the houses, and it seems that the policy will be passed, because in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, the sitting government has an absolute majority. So by the end of next financial year, that is 2024, sorry, that is 24 and 25, you will be getting a new tech policy. So anybody who is intended to start some technological related part, please wait for this 2-3 months and study this policy, then accordingly plan all your startup events.
Okay, sir. Like it looks like you already give out like a brief knowledge, or I can say a brief alert regarding our questions. So my very first question is that like, what are the current government policies, if you can brief any one of them for the rural areas especially?
Yeah,
Over
I
to
like
you.
to concentrate on this part very because it's a heart touching subject for me. Now, what happens when you make a startup? You have an idea, or you think of any idea, something which is innovative or technology related, or something which may idea can occur anywhere, rural, urban, any places. Now, government feels that a seed money should be given. So, government has announced at a central level a seed money policy, which you can go to the DPIT website and apply to the seed fund. Similarly, government has state government policies. Like every state government will have an innovation state mission through which they can give the state amounts. And third is that they have developed an incubation centers across India. Mostly universities in India have their incubation center, where yearly around 2 to 5 crore, depending upon the size, number of startup, the central government released to the funds to them to distribute via the name of seed fund. So the three-tier mechanism which I discuss upon at the central level policy, state level policy, and usually university as a district level. Every district has its own university. So at district level also, around every college, every university has around 1200 colleges affiliated to it. Around 1200 colleges are affiliated to it. So that colleges are into rural areas. So before any kind of getting seed fund subsidy, you should approach the incubation centers, which government directly allot funds. Like in the budget speech, when the honorable finance minister gave the budget speech this year, they have allotted 3000 crores as a seed fund money for the new innovation of the startup. Now this 3000 crores will be distributed around. There are 300 incubation centers in India. Around 300 incubation centers are there. This 3000 crores, mostly 1000 crores is distributed through central government, 1000 crores is distributed through state channels, like 29 states and union territories. They are transfer funds, and state budget also allocates some kind of funds. State gives their own fund too. So, and this incubation center received around, big center may receive 100 crores, and smaller centers may receive around 1 or 2 crore rupees for distribution among the startups. Now, the rural startups, which are very on the marginal, their costing requirement or for making of startup is also very low. They can approach for the seed money of 10-20 lakh rupees to incubation centers for their requirement. There are many kind of competitions. This is the first part of seed money, that what I was referring. And the second part of the funding is that government announces various competitions. Like last 2 months back, government announced any startup in water competition, any competition in defense area, any competition in agriculture area. So government and state government keep on announcing various kind of competition where you can participate and you can get the prize money for that. I would like to remember that when you take the funds from central, state, or incubation center, the money may be in different form. Some incubation center give you in the form of equity, some give you in the form of debt, and some give you in the form of grant. So equity you have to return back, or they are your partner, you have to sell it, or what you can do. Debt is a simple, you have to pay interest, and grant is one-time grant. Like I'll cite you example. In my one of the incubation center where I am the finance mentor, there was a student who cracked the hydrogen gas. He is trying to build a hydrogen gas which will be used as an alternative fuel, and he won a competition where he got 2,50,000. So this kind of competitions may range from 1 lakh to 1 crore or around 10 crores. So you should be watching the sector specific or community specific startups where this kind of equity, debt, grant, or one time funds are given, or some kind of innovation is given. For if you develop some kind of innovation, like one of my students is developing artificial intelligence on robotics. He is developing that robotics and a combination of all these parameters. He is getting one time research fund, which last time we talk about cash burns and cash flows. In this kind of research, the institutions, government give a specific fund for the research purpose. It may be for, you not say it is a seed fund kind of, because seed fund may have some conditions, but it is given for research. Means even though your research is failure, no, you don't have to pay the amount. You don't have to research fund amount. In fact, university will help you for giving the professors, giving your laboratory, giving their infrastructure for your testing. So this kind of indirect grant is also associated, where money will be not there, but you will be getting the facilities and availability. This was I told about you: grant, subsidy, seed fund, one-time fund, research fund. This is the one-tier mechanism which government is operating at its own end. Next part, I'm just discussing about the government part only. Then I will come to the private players and the social institution and regional institutions. Government has also established few kind of branches for funding startups, like State Bank, Nationalized Bank, State Banks, Central Bank, Canara Bank. They have opened and dedicated startup branches where they will help you in developing the banking ecosystem, from opening of the current account and giving you the accelerator program. Like, for example, if I go to the State Bank of Bandra Kurla Complex, Mumbai, that is the biggest branch for startup developed by State Bank of India in India, that is Bandra Kurla Complex, Mumbai. They will help you in opening of the account, plus they will understand your product. And as the State Bank of India is the biggest bank in India, they will help you to reach their clients of the State Bank, whom this startup can be very helpful. So this is also called an accelerator program, which is indirectly run by government in the form of funding activities. So this does not involve any kind of cost, but need only approach to go to the bankers, have a licensing, good word, and they can develop the open doors for the potential usage of the startup. That is the second buyer mechanism, where the banks will give you debt. They will banks only can you give debt, then they cannot give you equity, or they cannot give for a research purpose. They will take some mortgage. There is around 2 crore rupees CGTMAC unsecured loan is there, which you can avail, which you cannot avail, depend upon the banking activities and all that. And third is like bigger players like Infosys, HCL. They have their own incubation centers where these companies fund the startup which are useful to their main business purpose activity. So that may be one-time fund, equity, grant, and the similar pattern of it. So this is kind of structure. Now IITs and IIM students are developing this kind of patterns, some kind of research they are doing. So what happens now? The alumina of that IIT and IIMs, they are funding the project. There is a common word called as crowdfunding. That is not famous in India till now, but it is very often used in the US markets, where in the college premises only your near ones and delegates give you funds, that is in the form of crowdfunding. In India, government has still not given any regulations for funding on the basis of crowdfunding. And that deep tech policy is the first phase of the announcement of the policy. So you have to be very regulated. Now, one thing the entrepreneur should remember, that the G20 summit is going on in India, and we are the president part of it. So the G20 members will be definitely having eye on this all startup policy, and this all startup policies are being given birth from that G20 meeting only. In meeting only, when all countries of the representatives of the countries says that our ecosystem has this kind of startup policy, so it puts some pressure on the government also, right? America is a part of it, China is a part of it, Germany is a part of it. They say that when there are policies in our country, then why then it should not be commonly implemented in G20 countries. So it's a group of G20 which is regulating many policies in India. So you have to keep eye on that.
Understood, sir. Understood. Thank you. Thank you for telling like a brief of government policies. Also, sir, earlier you were mentioning that there could be a like a couple of months delay. You are kind of the warning, or you can say suggestion you are telling to the founders, right, to applying a different niche. So my second question is that what are the new changes in the government policies as of now, which a founder should be considered before going to the startup journey?
Before I can say that startup journey, majority of the early stage startups, that is early stage of ecosystem, is in every country is controlled by government in the initial stages. Like in America, it was in 1980s, it was controlled by government, and in 1990s and 2000, it was given total ecosystem was developed and it was handed over to the private players. In India, still now there is no ecosystem developed by the private players because they exactly don't know what will be the output of it. So government at the moment is trying to develop a cluster, through economic policies that area development should take place. Like they have announced an ODOP policy, one district, one product. So that's why that policy will be helpful to the entrepreneur to develop a regional products. Like if anybody want to develop regional products, that can take it. Like if you go to the Bhuj is famous, Bhujodi is famous for rural handicraft. So that handicraft cannot take wings until a government support them in a technological way or funding way. So the first part is that, and that state policy will determine how they will be getting the funds out of it. Like in Gujarat, iHub is there. They have given around 2 lakh rupees to the females for just giving an idea to government that what kind of startup the business entrepreneur should do. So there are 29 states. Every state has at least 3 state policies. Like if I talk about the Maharashtra, they have developed EV policy, they have developed software policies, they have policy. So there are many policies, right? I can read upon that. Dhan Shakti scheme is there, which is run by almost long-term capital, working capital scheme, which is given by government. There is Mahila Udyam Nidhi Yojana, right? That is Punjab National Bank and Ministry of Finance. Finance this kind of product. Stree Shakti package for women entrepreneurs by State Bank of India. There are such kind of policies which each bank makes according to the requirement of the entrepreneurs. So all entrepreneurs, before taking a project on a specific startup, they should go backward and study what is the government policy on that. Like for example, I wanted to make a SaaS based technology platform, or I wanted to make this is a SaaS based is a very common phenomenon. Out of, if you talk to any 10 guys, 3 will be meeting of SaaS only. So that SaaS guy has to study this deep tick policy, which will be affecting from January, because otherwise he will develop such a ecosystem when his product will be on the launching in January and government will be announcing his policy, it will be a contradictory. Like 2 days back only, data protection privacy bill has been passed in the parliament. Now this data protection policy which has been passed in the honorable, it says that the private players cannot use or encrypt or intervene in the data of a private person. So the WhatsApp messages which are coming to you, now they will be controlled. There is a fine of 50 crore to 250 crores. So bigger company which are taking the use of media technology by way of violating the private policy of government of India, they will be heavily fined for it. So this kind of policy, as the monsoon session of parliament is going on, kindly keep deep watch on the policies which are passed by India, because until and unless you understand that policy, you will not go ahead. Similarly, keep eye on winter policies. So it plays a major role for development of a product. Now your question was valid. What are the major policies? As per now, data protection and deep tech policy are the major. Now the government will be coming on more on the other sector. Now government will develop sector specific policies, regulations. In coming 1 year, you will find a lot of act under startup policy for various state government, central government. In spite of central government policy, you should keep eye on state government policies. Like I give a small example. If you develop an agriculture drone, and if you are running an agriculture drone in government of Maharashtra, you get a 50% subsidy, and central government gives 75% subsidy. But state government of Gujarat gives you the subsidy on spraying. What if you spray for one time in a one day, it costs around 2,500. They will give you a subsidy of 1,200 only. But in government of Maharashtra, if you buy a drone of 9 lakh rupees, you will get a subsidy of 4,50,000. So until and unless you understand the state policy, you cannot launch your product in that state.
Okay, sir. So I must also I just want to let you know one more point. Like there is many policies, even there are many apps right now in a Play Store which actually state like what kind of the government policies they have announced. So the founders or the respective person actually can go through on that kind of the applications also. So this comes to our last topic of the evening. So the last questions of the evening, sorry. So the third question is that impact on a new or existing startups industry of these policies. If you may state that. Over to you, sir.
What happens now? Till now, from 2016, it was all general. You can do anything. It was happening because government want to, like it's like a kid. When a kid is born, parents do not put any restriction up to 5 or 6 years. Let him play, let him roll, let him dance, let him do anything what he wants. That is the same happening in this India. 2016 to 2023, there are very less regulation. Even government knows that it is being violated. They help in a violation in a way that the ecosystem should be developing. Now, until the ecosystem is developed, there are two options. It should be natural ecosystem developed or a government developed ecosystem. For development and ecosystem, for example, if you want to develop a SaaS-based ecosystem, we need to integrate a lot of developers, lot of testing equipment, lot of software, lot of hardware, lot of technical professional institution. You have to develop one like IAMs, around 20 IAMs are in India. But for SaaS-based, government will be requiring testing, implementation, fixed cost development at each state. That is around 29 already they will be there. In each state, there are around 20 to 35 districts. So around 500 for SaaS only, government cannot develop ecosystem. And out of that, there are chances of success and failure. So if the only 30% of the SaaS are successful, there is 70% of the capital expenditure of the government will go in the West. So they think that if it is developing natural way and violating way, like it's like similar kind of Microsoft Windows, which is itself allowed by the company to use on an illegal way so that piracy laws are not taken because the users are increased. And once the users are increased, catch some bigger organization that you have not obtained this license. So similar way government is operating that in natural way you can do that, but after 9 or 10 years, we'll develop some policy once it has been developed. So allow the kid up to 5th, 6th, what you want. After 5th or 6th standard, develop your rules, protocols, then the child will be developing, maturing and thinking the way you want it.
Correct, sir. You gave a very perfect and a simple example. Okay, that's it for the day, sir. Thank you so much for giving us a valuable time. It means a lot. Yeah. So we are having up the last episode. We'll be shooting out soon. Yes. Yeah, that's it for the audience. Please give us the support. Bye-bye. Take care.
Have a good time. Yes.
Same to you, sir. Bye.